space.
You all seem to have more space than I do have. Right?
I don't think well.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hello. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. Hello. I hope those who celebrated had a good holiday. Brian actually cooked this year. He did the entire meal for the family, and it was absolutely delicious. So it was really nice. It was a nice, calm holiday full of good food and good company. So I hope everyone else had a nice holiday, restful holiday as well. I certainly hope so. Let me see here. And welcome everyone to another session for the Urban Garden Learning Series. And if you're just joining us for the first time, we rotate. So sometimes we offer classes like today. Sometimes there are Q&As, plant clinics, open forums as well. And it's always an open invitation for open forums if you do have something you would like to talk about. Doesn't have to be the full length of the session if you don't want it to be, but if you definitely want to share anything, please, by all means, let me know. You don't have to create a presentation if you just want to hop on the video and talk about maybe your cacti collection, or maybe you have a really great recipe for like a soil mix for a certain type of plant that you really would love to share. Let me know. I'm always happy to have you and to give you the spotlight on, on your hobby. So please let me know. Always happy to have you. So in today's class, we're going to be talking about holiday cacti. So this was one of the requests that we got. So we're going to talk about what these are and why they're called holiday cacti, some different examples of them, a little bit about their care. These are a really interesting group of plants. So I'm excited to to introduce you to them if you're not familiar with them. And then next week, we're going to have a Q&A. So yeah, we'll just be hanging out. You can bring your questions, anything plant related, bring it in. This class is not monetized in any way, but if you would like to, as per everyone's request for me to put this up here, the Venmo, there you go. If it's always appreciated, but again, not necessary. And also, as requested, here is a link to my Patreon as well that is now live. And if you would like to get in contact, best email is info@urbangarden.eco. But you can also check the website. We're in the process of updating the website. So yeah, hopefully I'm going to try to set all of the upcoming classes and everything in the calendar. Yeah, and if I have any other offerings, if you are in New York City, I am going to be offering some more Zoom classes in the upcoming like January, February. But if you are in New York City, I am going to be offering plant walks. So if that is of interest, let me know. I'm happy to send you the information. So I'm setting all those dates up in the next like week or two. So let me know, and I will definitely post it in the Facebook page as well. So if anybody is interested. And if you'd prefer to contact me through Instagram, urbangarden.eco, right there. So no worries. So today we're gonna touch on so what is Schlumbergia? What are holiday cacti, right? This is a group of cacti where they were the three. Let me put here. Hold on. There we go. The holiday cacti. So they used to be. They were all in the same family called Schlumbergia, which was a they were named after a Belgian botanist, I believe, from the 1800s. So they were named in honor of him. He was an avid collector of cacti. And so these cacti that when they were brought to the Northern Hemisphere, their blooming periods, so when they actually go into flower, coincides with these holidays. So the Thanksgiving cactus will start to bloom around Thanksgiving, so late November. With the Christmas cacti, it's in late December, early January. And with Easter cacti, it's usually in like April, May kind of season that you'll start to really get big blooms. So they ended up, commercially, right, became known as the holiday cacti, and they fill our stores during here, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. They fill our stores during the holidays because of this reason. Now, this can be, they are indeed manipulated in terms of to get them to flower. So commercially, they are put into special conditions with special lighting, and they're deprived. So with the Thanksgiving and the Christmas cacti, they actually need to be deprived of light. They need to get about 16 hours of darkness every like for several weeks, along with cooling temperatures. And then this is what sets them off. This triggers them to start flowering. But it's different for the Easter cactus. With the Easter cactus, it's slowly getting more light, and it would prefer still cooler temperatures, but a little bit of a little bit of an increase, but more so the increase of the sunlight is what ends up triggering it to bloom. So yeah, and this is something that is done, artificially inside of greenhouses where they're deprived of, there's no actual windows, right? The light is completely controlled. It's completely artificial. So they're able to control all of those environmental factors, right? They can control the amount of light, the temperature, the humidity levels. So doing that is how they get all of these cacti to to actually bloom at the same time and get them ready for commercial use, right? To get them shipped out to the stores, having them look lovely. So you see this all the time during the holiday season. So a lot of big box stores, things like Home Depot, Lowe's, you'll see them in your local plant shops as well. So they've kind of become synonymous. If you look for them in your plant, like garden centers or your plant shops during the holidays, they're very much linked now. But what are they, right? So that was the big question. So here we go as to why are they named holiday cacti, right? But what are they? So as I mentioned, they were once all under Schlumbergia. The Easter cactus has been reclassified, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But they were all Schlumbergia. Then zygocactus. So zygocactus was another name that they went by, but this was more of a name that has been kind of linked to them commercially. There was like a patent basically taken out on a specific hybrid. So that is something that can be done. So you can't patent things that exist in nature, but if you do create hybrid, so something that you personally did that wouldn't have occurred in nature, technically you can patent it. So hybrids can be patented, and that's why if you are familiar with these, you might have seen the little tags that say zygocactus. And that's because that was the genus that was kind of that was patented and given to these cacti. But it's not the scientific name. But also it's that you'll see a lot of warnings. So things like do not propagate, because then you're in breach of that patent. So they legally own the rights to that genetic code. And so you see on their labels that say, please do not propagate and sell, because you're not allowed to, like, this is our genetic material. We own this genetic material, so you can't sell this genetic material. But yeah, so we'll talk more about how to spot the differences between the three. But they're just lovely. I personally, one of my favorite groups of plants are epiphytic cacti. I have quite a few epiphytic cacti and epiphytic succulents. So I just love them. These guys are actually related to Rhipsalis, which is one of my favorite types of plants. It's one of my favorite genera. And yeah, I just love them. I love these kind of stringy, more delicate looking rainforest cacti, basically, because these do occur more in a rainforest setting, but also they can occur in a more arid setting. And just as a review, so what is an epiphyte and what is a lithophyte? So these are epiphytic cacti, though they can live as lithophytes. So epiphytes grow on trees. They tend to grow on, a tree. It could be a living tree, a dead tree. It's not a parasite, so it's not actually getting any nutritional input from the tree itself. It's just using the tree as an anchor point, basically. It's just like a perch. So it gets, how the plant is introduced so many ways. It could be tiny, break off, fall in on, down below onto another tree in the canopy. It could be carried by a bird, high winds, so many different reasons as to how they can end up in the tree. But once they are there, they do kind of fasten themselves, and then they just use the tree as a perch, and they go ahead and keep growing. Pieces fall again below onto neighboring trees or onto the forest floor. But they typically like to grow more so elevated, right? They don't want to be in complete moist, like really moist soil all the time. They want nice, airy kind of substrate. And yeah, and they'll be in these really interesting kind of areas. I've seen in El Salvador, for instance, I saw a lot of folks have them in their trees, but they would put like a pot and then kind of start it on the tree like that. They'd fasten the pot to the tree and then it would just keep going. It looked really, really cool that way. So you can definitely do that if you live in a climate where it would be hospitable, right? Probably Florida, somewhere where it will be very comfortable. It wouldn't go through a freeze, because these are not cold hardy, unfortunately. They're not freeze tolerant. Now lithophytes. So lithophytes are plants that typically grow basically in rocks, rocky alcoves. Again, not a traditional plant in that it's growing in soil, right? It's again very porous, very there's not much nutrition, right? It's not a nutrition dense area. So a lot of these epiphytes, they don't like large amounts of fertilizer. They really don't, because they've adapted to not having much nutrition, getting kind of like the bare minimum and surviving that way. And so sometimes when you actually introduce a lot of fertilizer to them, it can actually cause burn. It can cause them to die. So be aware of that. So don't over fertilize epiphytes. They don't tend to like it very much. Now there are hemi-epiphytes. There are plants that are kind of half and half. They might start on the ground, then grow up the tree, and they could lose connection with the base, and they'll still continue to be fine because they have roots. And they're able to still collect water from the rain or pools of water, in the tree itself. So there are plants that kind of straddle the line between a soil-based and non-soil-based plant. But these guys, they can be kept in soil. I would recommend, if you do get them from the store, usually it's a lot of coco coir or peat. And this can hold a lot of moisture. And I would recommend that once the plant has kind of gotten used to your home, it's been what is called acclimated, which can take about 2 to 4 weeks. I think 4 weeks is safer to make sure it's adjusted to your conditions. Maybe repot it. It doesn't have to use a bigger pot, same pot, but you can just add maybe a little bit more perlite to the mix, or just something to kind of break up that soil, and maybe remove some of that peat, replace it with some succulent soil. You just don't want just brown, heavy, dense soil that's going to essentially just absorb moisture like a sponge. You want something that, yes, it has some absorption, but it allows for drainage. Because that's what a lot of folks end up struggling with, is they're watering them and then they're just rotting at the base, and they just lose the whole plant. So you can do that, and just that'll help. Let me see the chat 1 second. Where'd the chat go? Chat. The chat isn't showing. Hold on, I'm gonna stop this share real quick, because I see that there's some chats, but then they're not popping up. Oh, T Bailey, happy Monday to you too. And good morning, Adeline. Oh no, the snow. Yeah, yesterday we thought we were gonna get snow. We got it, the sky looked kind of pink. So both Brian and I were like, oh no, but nothing happened. So no snow as of yet. Sandra, hello, greetings. Dark and cold in Norfolk, UK. Oh gosh. Yeah, we're getting dark and cold here. It's it's making us very sleepy. T Bailey, yes, direct message me your email address and I'll see what's going on. Because that's odd. Yeah. Here you go, Brenda. Oh, thank you. And Brenda Stearns, I just bought a Lithop living rock. I find it very strange that they only need to be watered once or twice a year. Well, according to the plant shop, they said once in the spring. Yes, so that's a great example. So we just talk about lithophytes, right? And what is it called? Lithops. And so these are they come from Africa, but I think it's South Africa. Might be South Africa, I believe they're from. But basically these little succulents have adapted. Oh, I actually have, hold on. I actually have them here. These are my lithops. They look like little butts. That's why I love them so much, because they look very funny. But yeah, they actually grow in this really rocky ground, very, very low, and they blend in with other rocks. So that's why they're called living rocks. And what's really neat is they have this little window, if you can see, just this little window here, and this, so they are close to the ground, and kind of shield themselves, and they have this little window where the light comes in. And then any water that they are storing inside of them acts as a reflection, it's very reflective, and it kind of amplifies the light for them, so they're able to actually collect that light and form sugars. It's really, really interesting. So these are the lithops right here. Now, in terms of watering them, so I water these guys about like 3 times a year. Where they are native, they can get sometimes as little as only 2 inches of water per year. So therefore, they are not made to be watered routinely, right? Folks that get them and they get really excited, but then they water them as they do their other succulents, and then they start rotting. And it's just, they are not built to take in that much water. So yes, I would say for the last time I watered this guy was probably in July or August. And then I'm not gonna probably water it again until maybe January, February. And then I won't water it again until maybe May or June. And then again, like August, September. So yeah, it's every couple months. So every couple months, and just keep an eye on it. So it'll tell you when it wants to be watered. It will actually get wrinkled. When it starts to get wrinkled, but then it kind of still wait until it's very, very wrinkled. Once you water it, they plump up again, and then they're fine. So there are visual indicators as to when it needs to be watered. So so don't worry if you forgot to write it down, because that happens to me all the time. I end up knowing I kind of watered it, I just remember it was August. I remember it was August because it was right before I left for El Salvador. So that's the only reason. And I remember that I watered it around August. And so yeah, with these just kind of watch them. Now they do also get wrinkled when they're going to split. So you will actually see this, the split will get even larger. And then it looks like there's a flower. Sometimes it does bloom. A flower will bloom from it comes right out. It looks really pretty, kind of looks like a daisy. And then after that dies off, a new one might come out from this little hole. So this part splits open and it starts to form another one. And then all the moisture, sugars, all the nutrition that this one had gets reabsorbed into the other one. And then it just kind of shoves it to the bottom. It kind of gets wrinkled and goes to the bottom, and it just keeps doing this kind of life cycle. So so don't worry if you see that. If you see it splitting and you see like it looks like a little alien is coming out from the center, that's completely normal. So don't worry about that. Someone is saying here, I was just gifted a huge pink Thanksgiving cactus blooming with lots of buds, but unfortunately the buds are falling off. Help, please. Is it shock? I haven't watered it because it was moist. Anything I can do? Great question. So yes, what can happen with Thanksgiving cacti when they are in bloom? And this happens with all of them. So any holiday cacti, they are very sensitive to fluctuations of temperature and light. So if you bring home a Thanksgiving cactus or a Christmas cactus and you bring them into your home and it's over 70 degrees in your home, they would much prefer to be between about 64 and 68 when they're blooming. So if your home is 70 and up, or high 60s and up, basically, that's too warm for them at the blooming period, during the blooming period. So they start dropping their flowers. That's one reason. Two, it can be shock, definitely. As a plant is acclimating to a new area, it kind of wants to remove anything that's taking up energy that it doesn't want to give energy. So usually flowers are the first to go. Flowers, and then leaves. So yes, it could also be shock, but more likely it's because of the warmth and also light. So even if you have it by a window, right, and there's decreased sunlight, you still have light in your home, and they are that sensitive that they can actually sense the light that you have on, like your fluorescent lights. If you have lights on in your house, you have a lamp that goes on, your TV even, and these increased amounts of light past what they want, basically, ends up also making them drop their flowers, because then, yeah, they're like, oh, this is not a good time. So they start to lose their flowers that way. So yeah, that can happen. And Terry, I inherited a Thanksgiving cactus and it blooms beautifully a few times a year. However, the substrate is hard as a rock. Not sure if I should repot it since it appears healthy and is still growing. Yes, Terry, great question. So that's a problem with a lot of the substrates that are very peat heavy. Once they really dry, and I didn't come up with this. I just can't remember who came up with this analogy, but it was with the soils, right? That's like a cookie, right? And so think you want your soil to be much more like a soft baked cookie versus like those hard packaged cookies. So I'll say Chips Ahoy. So what ends up happening is that with substrates that are very peat heavy, when they do actually dry out, they become what is called hydrophobic. And so they pull away from the sides of the container. So now you can see like the edges of the container. It kind of locks itself in. There's like no moisture in there. But then what happens is when you do try to add water, it's just rolling. It rolls off the surface, rolls down the side, and comes out the drainage holes. It actually doesn't penetrate this like rock of substrate. So a couple of things that you can do if you don't want to actually repot it, because that can cause stress to it, especially if you inherited it. So that everyone is aware, these cacti are very long-lived. So it's not uncommon to see them over 50 years old, even over 100 years old. These are plants that do tend, if they've been happy and well taken care of, they can be literally left to family members, and they will continue. I know quite a few folks that even just get pieces. So, their grandmother had a plant and she gave pieces to her children and her grandchildren, and then they continue to grow that plant. So it's a very long-lived plant. So it's very understandable that if you were to repot it, you might cause it to go into shock, and that can, kill the plant earlier than you'd want to. If it absolutely doesn't need to be repotted, what a few things you can do is, okay, if the pot is still a nursery pot, I would recommend the crunch. So you kind of go around and squeeze it to kind of crack that soil up. It's minimally invasive. It's not gonna, harm the plant at all, but just kind of doing that and then doing a bottom water really helps to loosen it up. But most people, when they have these, they tend to put them into ceramic or hard, kind of pots. So the crunch method isn't going to work right. So this is when you might want to use like a barbecue skewer, a chopstick, something like that to break up the soil, but you're going to want to be very gentle. So make sure you're not wearing gloves for this, because you need to be able to feel if there's any resistance, because you don't want to stab a bunch of roots. So what you can do is work from the edge and kind of stick the little barbecue skewer or the chopstick along the edges that got pulled in, and kind of like dip and kind of like pull toward, so that it's kind of cracking like the edges. And then you go in to these little areas and try to poke some holes to kind of create some capillaries, break up that soil, add more oxygen to the soil, because that can also kill your plants. So one, the water isn't getting through, but if the water isn't getting through, oxygen isn't getting through either, and that can end up suffocating your roots as well. So yeah, they need oxygen too. So if any of you get any really compacted soil like that, those are a few options. So either doing the crunch if you have a nursery pot, but if you don't, you have like a terracotta or a ceramic pot, then yeah, using like a stick is probably the best option. You just really want to be gentle with it. So even like twisting it and kind of letting it go in, but not stabbing the soil, because you don't want us to break up a bunch of roots. You don't want a bunch of wounds in your roots. That's going to allow for bacteria, pathogens, fungi to get in. It causes stress to the plant. So yeah. But what you can do is time this with the next time you have to water the plant, because after you do this breaking up in whatever method it is, you're going to want to bottom water it. That's just going to help fully saturate that soil. After it's been broken up, you create basically these little capillaries for the moisture to get through. And yeah, and then that tends to help a little bit with moisture content. So yeah, hopefully that helps. And Adeline, I have a beautiful cacti that is blooming now for several weeks. If I want it to be even more a compact plant, can I separate some leaves to start a new plant? And will that work to compact the mother? Oh, if you're referring to the holiday cacti, I mean, it's very hard to keep them compact because they do overflow. They're a what's it, like a cascading? There we go. That's the right word. They're a cascading type of plant. So they're meant to kind of spread and kind of grow that way. If you wanted to keep her compact, then yes, you could technically remove these. They're called phylloclades. They're also known as cladodes, but phylloclades tends to be what they're usually called. They're those little segments. You could remove them and start new plants if you're trying to keep the mother relatively compact, but just know that they're always going to grow that way. So you can't avoid them growing that way. Once segments start to get long enough, they will start to drape and just kind of hang over. Yeah, but so you can do that. You can absolutely do that if you wanted to kind of spread the love, share them, make new plants, while keeping the mother plant relatively small. You can totally do that. But yeah. And Tiffany, I have a section of frangipani. I'm not familiar with that. I have it in a pitcher of water. Should I stick it in the dirt instead? Let me look up what in the world is. Hold on. What is I am not frangipani. Frangipani. Oh, plumera. Oh, I've never heard it called frangipani before. Oh, let me share my screen here so that folks see what I was looking at. So if you're not aware of Plumera, there we go. Plumera is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, they do grow in the southern states. I live in Florida. So yeah, they would definitely grow in Florida. I live in Florida and I just bought moringa seeds for their medicinal benefit. Wondering the best time to plant them. I know moringa is really difficult to successfully grow. I have some colleagues, for instance, that were only able to successfully grow them to a nice stature by growing them in a greenhouse. So I'm not sure how they would grow in Florida. And being that Florida is relatively warm year round, I know you guys get dips. But I'm in New York City. But I'm not sure in Florida when the best time would be to plant them. But I know that they can be very difficult to start, and they can just get very like from what I was being told by colleagues, they were getting very kind of gangly. They'd stretch a lot, and the only way that I had a colleague that was able to really kind of have them grow, I think up to 3 feet, 3-4 feet, and have healthier plants. I don't know if they actually produced seed for her, but to have them actually nicely grow was only because she did them in a greenhouse, and she's in Wisconsin. So it is much colder. But yeah, so I'm not very familiar with moringa, unfortunately. Sorry. Adeline, would the separation of those segments be best after the flowering is complete? Yes. Because if you do remove them, just know that the flowers will die. Even if you have flower buds, they will absolutely die if if you have them on the segments. Just lost my train of thought there. All right, so I'm gonna hop back in. It's just for some reason Zoom wasn't, I was clicking on looking at the chat and it wouldn't let me see the chat until I stopped sharing. So sorry about that. But yeah, just to show you. So again, there is the Thanksgiving, the Christmas, and the Easter cactus. But what are the main differences? So there's this really great graphic that you can find online, and it was a chart that was drawn that shows the 3 different types of leaves. Well, they're not true leaves. So that's one thing to also kind of clarify. So these are actually flattened stems that have evolved to have the ability to photosynthesize. So it's super neat, but they do function as leaves, and you will see them consistently spoken about as leaves. You'll see that pretty much everywhere. They'll talk about them as leaves. They do function as leaves, but technically these are phylloclades, and they're really just segments of flattened stem. So they don't have true leaves. I think there's only 1 or 2 cacti in the world that actually produce leaves. For the most part, they are a leafless type of plant that is just the stem is what you're seeing, and that's what's photosynthesizing actively instead of having leaves. That's one big difference too. If you see euphorbia species that are called cacti, they're called the African milk cactus, but they are not a true cacti. And they do produce leaves. So one famous euphorbia is the poinsettia that everyone loves during Christmas time. So you might already, I think I actually saw them being sold already in Home Depot. it's crazy. It's always like November 1st, the day after Christmas, and everything is, I'm sorry, the day after Halloween, and everything is Christmas. I walked into a store on November 1st and they already had the Christmas tree ornaments out. I was like, wait, I'm a Halloween person. Halloween's my favorite holiday. And so it's just crazier every year. That right after Halloween, it's immediate Christmas. I'm like, well, there wasn't even Thanksgiving, guys. Wait, wait. It just zips right by. But here is the Thanksgiving cactus. So you can see has these kind of teeth, right? They're also known as wings on the edge, on the leaf margins. And these guys, so truncata, so Schlumbergia truncata. So if you look at the shape of the cladode, it does very much look very square-like, right? And so this is how you're going to know that the difference between the Thanksgiving and the Christmas, because the Easter cactus looks totally different. It lacks the teeth. So the only ones you're really going to struggle with is between the Christmas and the Thanksgiving. And also note that there are many hybrids, right? So, you know, you're probably seeing the truncata, but you can see plenty of others as well. I know a couple of the Christmas cacti hybrids, but this typically is what is being sold as the Thanksgiving cactus. And yeah, it's been famous for a while, as you can see, since the 1800s. This has just been very, very popular. And this was actually a plant that was very, very popular. It kind of fell out of popularity for a little while, and then it picked up again. And now it's been pretty steady again. It's one of those plants that becomes synonymous with the holidays, and the same like poinsettia, as I mentioned, with Christmas, right? Everything is poinsettia. And again, it's a euphorbia. So it's not you know, like a type of shrub or anything, or flower. What you're actually seeing, the petals are actually bracts, and the flowers are actually really teeny tiny and at the center. Those are the actual flowers. Those red petals that they look like they're petals, they're actually not petals, they're bracts. And so it's just to kind of attract pollinators. But there's so many different varieties now. They're beautiful. I just saw one that I think they called it the candy cane or something like that. And it was variegated. So it had the red and the white, and oh, it looked beautiful. But yeah, and they can be very difficult. Poinsettias can be very difficult to keep happy indoors, but if you do, just be warned, they get very large. In the wild, they grow basically like small trees. And so so I have had quite a few folks ask, well, do I trim it? What do I do? This thing is like a behemoth. Yeah, it will keep growing. If it's happy, it'll keep growing. Now with the Christmas cactus, so the teeth are not as pronounced. So I'll go back. So if you look again at this little example of a segment, and then we go back, you can see the Thanksgiving cactus is much sharper, right? Much sharper. So, so again, not as the teeth aren't as sharp. It's much more of a subtle type of thing. The new growth might also appear to have kind of less teeth. But yeah, this is the Christmas cactus. And what's really cool is it has this double flower. And so if you look back here, Thanksgiving cacti also have a double flower. So quite literally, there are two flowers that are on top of one another. It looks really, really beautiful. This is a better shot here, but you can really see it's like one flower and then a flower comes, it's like flower inception. So quite beautiful. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. And what I love is that the pollen also, so for instance, with the Thanksgiving cactus, the color of the pollen is also a great indicator as to what plant you're dealing with, right? So if you have one in your house and it's in bloom and you're like, I'm not sure, the teeth, it's kind of sharp, kind of not sharp, it can go either way. So take a white piece of paper and actually just kind of tap on the flower and get the pollen to fall on that white piece of paper. And if it's yellow pollen, more than likely it's a Thanksgiving cactus, and a pink kind of rosy colored pollen tends to indicate that you have a Christmas cactus. In case that's helpful. So that's, you can identify plants through their pollen, sometimes the color of the pollen, but also the shape of the pollen. And that's how a lot of plants that we know of in the fossil record, the pollen is what got fossilized, or pollen got trapped in amber. And we're able to know that that plant existed during that time, because pollen is very specific to each and every plant. But yeah, so the color, you can totally see that. And then this is the Easter cactus. So this is one flower. So it doesn't have the double flower. And as you can see, it's much more of a scalloped edge. It doesn't, it's kind of a much less, yeah, it's not very pointy at all. It looks much less fierce. And yeah, it's quite lovely. I mean, the flowers are absolutely beautiful. And it was considered a Schlumbergia. So it's still related, but it has been reclassified quite a few times. So I think it's the Hatioria, sorry. I believe that's the latest one. But at one point it was also Ripsalidopsis as well. So we'll see. But as you can see, when it is reclassified, it tends to keep its specific epithet, which is the second part of the name. So for quick botanical nomenclature lesson, so you have so the botanical names always have two parts. So they have, there can be add-ons, and I'll mention that in a second, but it's always the genus, which is like the main family, and then the species. So you have like your family, so Schlumbergias, but then there are now the species. So how do you separate all of these individuals that are part of that family? So there's that specific epithet, and so that can be the name of somebody who discovered them. It can be very much a location. It can be quite a few things. But when they are reclassified, so it's about every 7 years or so, there is a meeting of the Botanical Council. It's an international botanical council. And so folks, scientists are able to present, hey, I did some genetic testing, and this plant that we always thought was in this family is actually part of this family. And they'll put their, what the new name is going to be. And so yes, so then it gets reclassified. But then it does take some time for the textbooks to catch up, for commercially for folks to catch up. And so you might see, that's why there are these synonyms. So when you see a plant, and under that plant it has its scientific name, and then you see syn, like how I have it demonstrated here. That just means that in textbooks you'll also see it listed under these names. So these could be current names, previous names. So yes, and in shops, sometimes you will actually find old names, and it's just because that name is kind of what the plant goes by commercially, even though it got reclassified 10 years ago. And you'll still see it called something else. So don't worry about that. Sometimes these, it takes a while for those changes to really be reflected. So you might still buy books that have an old name in them. So it just helps to know well, what are the other names associated with this plant? Because it's very helpful if you're trying to really get into taxonomy and really focus on plant families. You're going to need to learn synonyms. You don't have to memorize them, but at least having them down is just really helpful, because if you're dealing with a different textbook, you want to know exactly what plant they're referring to, and it might have a different name now. So especially if it's an older book. I have quite a few old botany books. Many of those names have changed. So I love being able to go, oh yeah, okay, I know, I recognize this old name, but this is the new name, and then I can make a little note. But yeah, so definitely I have a great book on the roots of Latin words if you're interested in botanical nomenclature. So you're like, hey, yeah, I actually really want to get into plant names and understanding root words and things like that. Let me know, because I have the book, but I also have it as a PDF, so I'm happy to share it. So just let me know. You can put it in the chat. Let me know. Email me or private message me your email address, and just let me know that you want the PDF, and I'm happy to send it your way. So, but yeah, so you can see there's a stark difference, right? So if we go back again, so Thanksgiving, very pointy. Just think of it, very, very pointy. Christmas, much less pointy, but still has some points. And then Easter, there's just no points whatsoever. It's just much more subtle, much softer kind of looking. And this is just an overall picture here of a Thanksgiving cactus. But you can see the segments. So again, these are flattened, they're modified stems technically. So they're flattened stem segments. You can see here that double flower as well. Absolutely gorgeous. And this is their growing habit. So this is how they tend to, their overall shape when they start to really become mature plants. It's this kind of cascading thing. So it is difficult to keep compact, definitely. But if you did want to do so, yes, definitely after flowering, I would say, because someone had asked, definitely after flowering, because if you remove them while they're flowering, one, if the piece has a flower, it will fall off. But also, if the plant, it takes a lot of energy for a plant to flower. It's a lot of energy. This is why in many times during gardening, when you're doing gardening, especially herb gardening, you will clip the flower heads off before they have a chance to bloom. Like with basil, you see them start to go to flower and you rip the little plant off. You just, the little flower, you can clip it off or just kind of with your nail and just cut it off. And because now it has no flower to kind of throw its energy into, it's like, oh, okay, rechannel, redirect our energy into growth. And then the basil plant will actually get kind of bushier rather than focusing its energy on flowers. And so in the same case here, if you let it flower, it's taking a lot of energy for the plant. So if you're actively removing pieces of the plant, that's just less energy. Now, also with these plants, usually it's a lot of actually several plants. They're basically a bunch of cuttings that were put in one pot. So there might be a huge section that is indeed one individual, but when you actually really look at it, they tend to be sometimes 3-4 plants in one, and they're each individual. They're individual plants. They still might be completely the same. Of course, they're the same species, the same color variety. So they basically were taken from the mother plant, kind of put in a pot, rooted, about the same size. So they kind of grow very uniformly. And yeah, but you might have technically more than one plant from in there. But if you are actively removing chunks of stem from the plant while it's flowering, it gets less energy in, and it might start dropping the rest of its flowers. from that segment at the very least. So from that like section. So I wouldn't recommend doing that while flowering unless you don't mind. You're like, I don't really want the mess of the flowers, I'm fine. then yeah, you can totally do that. Now with the Christmas cacti, there are also different species. Hold on, let me take a swig of my voice is starting to hurt. Hold on. Ooh, my matcha. I'm going to Costa Rica in a few weeks, and I need to make sure to pack pack matcha to take with me. So I was showing you the Christmas cacti. Hold on one second. So the Schlumbergia Bridgesii, but there is also the Buckley. So there are tons of hybrids with these holiday cacti. There are just tons. So I'll actually show you. Let me see here. Let me go to. There you go. It's the Buckley. Let me try to open that up. Schlumbergia Buckley. Yes. Here we go. So this is the Schlumbergia Buckley. And so it's a hybrid. So when you see hybrids, they tend to have an X on them, and that's just telling you they were mixed. So this is a mix of the Bridgesii and a Buckley. And here we go. So it's still considered a Christmas cacti, and you will still see it sold as a Christmas cacti. But if you are a purist, if you're trying, let's say, to specifically collect different types of epiphytic cacti, just be aware that there are hybrids that are being sold as one species. They are even commonly labeled as such. I have seen quite a few of the Buckley's are still being labeled as a Bridgesii, when it's not the case. If you're not a purist and you could really care less, then it's perfectly fine. But if you are, in the hobby, because you're trying to, specifically, I want to collect, a bunch of these species specifically, then yeah, just be aware that there are tons of hybrids. If you don't mind, that's fine. I don't mind at all. The more the better. But just in case anybody in the audience is kind of in the houseplant hobby for the taxonomy, be aware of this. But yeah, and then with the Easter cacti, it's the same thing. So with the Easter cacti, it's the yeah, there you go. I never know how to pronounce that. Gardenerii. Gardenerii. I'm not sure, but this is the Easter cactus. Here we go. Yeah, this is the Easter cactus, and you can see it's much more kind of like scalloped. Doesn't have the teeth, right? And then it has those single flowers. So it's just one flower that comes out. It's not those kind of tubular looking flowers. So if you were unsure, because sometimes these, they might look like they're a little bit more indented. You're like, I'm not sure. It could be a Christmas cacti. The flower is going to be the dead giveaway, right? So the other two have those kind of double tubular flowers, and the Easter cacti has this single flower. So this is the one that's typically sold as the Easter cacti. But there's also the Schlumbergia rosea that is also sold under the name Easter cacti. But it's rosy, so it's a really, really pretty color. And you can see they have been again reclassified, so that you can see this Ripsalidopsis. So they have been reclassified. So that's why I'm thinking that so Ripsalidopsis might be the latest name for it. But yeah, it's absolutely beautiful, really light baby pink. Also again known as an Easter cactus. I'm interested in this. Oh, this looks kind of sad. So this is so you can see, let me see if I can make this picture a little bigger. Oh, there we go. So the bases of these, all of them, of the Christmas, of these holiday cacti, the Thanksgiving and the Easter, just know that the bases do become corked. So this means that they become kind of like a stem. They kind of look woody. It's not true wood, but they basically, after many, many, many years, now this usually happens when the plant is a couple decades old. It basically, to support all the weight of all of the, segments it has, it really creates kind of a reinforced stem, essentially. And so the base will look very much like this. Now, typically the leaves here look a little bit dehydrated. So these look very sad right now. And it looks very sun stressed. So this is a great example to show you what sun stress on one of these might look like. So you see that pink kind of hue. Sometimes you'll actually see it as an orangey type of hue to it. And this is indicating that, that it's getting too much sunlight. So these, because they are epiphytic, and a lot of epiphytic plants, though, they actually prefer indirect light. And so these are plants that are in the canopy, but again, they're being covered by leaves, right? So they're not getting that direct sunlight. It's kind of like they have an umbrella, right? With all the tree leaves. So they get light, certainly get light, and especially if, there's a lot of winds, they're getting, bathed in light, but it's not as intense as straight on direct light. And so when you put them into a window that's like a Western window or a Southern window, it can be really intense. One, it can cause them to start to blush like this. So they get pink, they get, it's kind of like the red to yellow spectrum of colors. So you see either, again, like those oranges or those pinks, kind of like so they also call it like blushing because of that color. But what's happening is that the plant is actually basically kind of releasing these chemicals called anthocyanins in an effort to kind of create sunblock for itself. So it's trying to protect itself from the rays of the sun that are killing it there. So it's just too much. So it's trying to protect itself. So what you can do is, if you see that's happening, and this can happen with other plants like aloes, this is very common in aloes, where they start to blush like this, and that's not what they're supposed to do. So all you have to do is pull them away slightly from that window. So either put them just in a more indirect path, and just a little bit of patience, and usually they go back to green. So you don't have to worry about, oh gosh, it's destroyed forever. More often than not, it's going to go just back to green after a couple weeks. So don't panic if you're like looking over right now and you see that your plant is currently pink. Now, there are some cultivars that are purposely bred to look pink, or with jades, the edges get that really red blush color when they're in a really nice amount of light. That's fine. Don't worry about that. But if the whole plant is that color and it's not supposed to be that color, don't worry about that. I think it was like a year ago, I saw someone post on Facebook, and they were saying they grabbed an orange aloe from a greenhouse, and they were saying, oh, I think I got a new cultivar, like I got a cool new species of aloe. And everyone was trying to explain to her that the poor aloe was sunburnt, and it was blushing. It wasn't like a new species of aloe. The poor thing was just in a lot of light, and she just needed to put in a better light situation. Probably once she got it home, it was going to be in a much better light situation than in the greenhouse, and it'll turn green again. So so be aware of that. Oh, chats, hold on one second. Oh, Kim, you have the peach and the pink one. Yes. So there are so many different colors. There are white flower with these holiday cacti. You see whites and pinks and reds, kind of hot pinks, and the peach. The peach is such a gorgeous color. So someone is saying, I have the Jingle Bell poinsettia variety. So is that what it's called, the Jingle Bell? It was, the poinsettia is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I can't remember what I thought it was, like candy cane, so something Christmassy, but it's variegated. So let me see if, so I can show everyone. Jingle Bell poinsettia. Oh, it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was like, what is the name for that thing? Absolutely beautiful. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. The one I saw had a lot of white in it. Absolutely beautiful. So again, I'll make this bigger here. Let me see. Can I zoom in? Can I zoom in? Here you go. So quick again lesson here. These red petals, right, that you're seeing, those are bracts. They are not true petals. They are not the flower. What's actually the flower is in the center. So in the center of that flower, right, it looks like a flower, but in the center you see kind of like these light green, yellowy, kind of little balls in there. That's actually the flower. So there are a bunch of flowers there. And these red petals that are actually bracts kind of decorate them, make them very attractive for pollinators, but they are not true petals. They're super cool. They are a euphorbia. That means they are toxic. They do secrete a white sap when broken, and so it can irritate your hands. It can be very toxic to pets. So if you are going to get these and you're going to propagate them, and just make sure that you're wearing gloves, that you're not, barehanded and then touch your eyes or touch your mouth. It's not good. Yeah. Now I don't think the poinsettia is going to kill you or anything. Maybe your pet, yes, but you might get physically sick. There are some types of euphorbia where the latex is so strong that it can cause blindness when rubbed in the eye. Euphorbia is another one of my favorite families. So I'm obsessed with Rhipsalis, euphorbias, and peperomias. And I have quite a few euphorbias in my home. I have over a dozen. I probably have closer to 24 varieties of euphorbia. Love them, but they are very toxic. So you have to be really, really careful. Really, really, really careful. But they are a really fun group to collect. But they're plants, right? That have become synonymous with the holidays, and poinsettias with Christmas and the holiday cacti. So you definitely, and of course Christmas trees. So there's quite a few plants, right, that are linked to our holidays. So I have a apparent white Thanksgiving cactus with white pollen. Is it a hybrid? It could be. Also sometimes Christmas cacti are sold as Thanksgiving cacti. So I actually have seen that too, where they're mislabeled. So they're being sold as Christmas cacti, but they're actually Thanksgiving cacti. So that can happen, and vice versa. So it happens all the time. They are mixed up all the time. All the time. If it's not between, the main ones, the truncata and the Bridgesii, it's their hybrids. There's so many types, but yes, that can happen where they are labeled differently or being sold as one another. That can happen, and then that leads to a lot of confusion, right? Because you're like looking at the leaves, you're like, that doesn't look right. But yeah, so you can that can happen, and it could also be a hybrid. So definitely look at the leaves and see, are they very, very pointy, very jagged? That'll be a good indicator. Irene, my holiday cacti seems to flower each holiday, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, but the flower is the same, no significant difference. Is there a normal characteristic? Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of when they do flower, they only get that one type of flower that specific plant gets. So depending on which you get. But it's interesting if they're blooming for you several times a year. So again, it could be that you have just the situation. You have like the best situation for them to feel, hey, yeah, I'm being triggered to bloom. And so that's wonderful. So that just means they're getting enough energy and they're healthy enough that they're just repeatedly blooming and blooming and blooming. Because some folks get the opposite. They'll buy one and it's covered in flowers, and then they have it for several years and it never blooms for them. So it just seems like there's something in your situation. It could be the temperatures, somehow with the lighting, you're triggering it. So something is triggering it to flower for you several times a year, and that's not a bad thing. That's really cool, actually. And yeah, and in terms of the flower, you will just know where does it kind of fall. If it's a double flower, that means it's either a Thanksgiving or a Christmas cactus. But if it's a single flower that comes out, that means it's an Easter cactus. Oh, wonderful. I have a few folks here that dropped their emails. Oh, Synth. Yes, what happened to Liliaceae? Yes, the family. Yeah, there was quite a couple things that were moved out of the Lily family. There was a lot of restructuring. There's been just so many plants that we thought were related. There's been a lot of change. Oh, wonderful. Yes. And so I'll send all of you that. And I can definitely do a lesson on kind of beginners botanical Latin, if that's something of interest. This is something I teach my own students because for a lot of my classes, for my students that are like my apprentices and things, they're not only learning about herbalism, but they're also learning about the botanical Latin, especially because there's a lot of Latin root words in the practice of herbalism, but also in horticultural practices, and of course, just overall in botany. So I love being able to talk about that and kind of share that with folks, because one of my passions is etymology. I love root words. So yeah, I can totally do a class on Latin. But yeah, so I can definitely do that. And Adeline, could you give us the best potting soil for the cactus? Yes, of course. So with these, care and the potting soil. So a couple things to keep in mind. So as I mentioned earlier, they do not like really brown soil, which is what you typically buy them with, right? When you buy them at the store, they're in this kind of brown substrate. And this helps when the plant is newly rooted, right? It wants that extra moisture, but then as the plant starts to grow, it's too much. It can end up being a little bit too much moisture retention in that mix, and it's going to want something that has a lot more aeration in it. So you want it to have a lot of perlite in there. You can throw a little bit of leca. So something that's like when you're repotting them, their root systems typically grow very slowly. Epiphytic plants in general don't need to be repotted very often. What you can do is use the same pot. You just open it up. You can remove some of that mix, and then or as you lift it up, you don't really want to mess with the roots. You can take that mix, put it into a container, mix it with some perlite. Maybe you already have your perlite in a little container. Give it a good mix. You can add things like horticultural charcoal, a little bit of worm castings, maybe even a little bit of succulent soil in there, a little bit of orchid bark, just a couple pieces of orchid bark would be nice. Give it a nice mix, and then kind of put some back, put it, and then kind of put some back in there. So you kind of give it an upgrade in the mix without causing a lot of stress to the roots. So you can do that. But they need a lot of breathing room. So you don't want a mix that is as I believe Terry mentioned earlier, where it's a mix that becomes like a brick. So that happens a lot if there's a lot of peat inside of your mix. It's like when that thing, peat has been used as a fire starter. And so because when it hardens, it's like a brick. And then it was used as a fire starter. So you can imagine that that's what when it's part of your substrate and it dries, it like contracts and just becomes this kind of brick. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of the mixes when you buy your plants, or when they're coming from the nurseries, they tend to be very peat heavy. And this is because that is a great substrate for when you're beginning plants. So for baby plants, for like certain cuttings, not all cuttings, but a lot of cuttings, because it holds in a lot of moisture and their roots are like, they're trying to establish themselves. And so having that extra moisture is very helpful. However, the downside is that once the plant starts to grow and start to mature, that mix is just not sustainable. So it's not good for the long term, right? It's great for the short term, not for the long term. So that you will need to do that. Now, as I mentioned, that doesn't mean you need to upgrade the pot in terms of the size. It can be literally the same pot. You just change the substrate. In terms of watering, so there's, there are epiphytic cacti, and then there's terrestrial cacti. So with epiphytic cacti, they do get thirstier than terrestrial cacti. So with certain terrestrial cacti, you can go weeks without watering them and they'll be perfectly fine. They won't be none the wiser. They're perfectly fine. They want less water. They don't want lots of water. But with the holiday cacti, you actually can't let them go that long without water. They will start to wrinkle. They'll start to kind of faint. And once they get to a point where they're so wrinkled, they won't even come back. They'll actually just lose that segment entirely. And so typically in the summer months, depending on how warm and how much light they're getting, sometimes it can be about every 7 to 10 days, you give them a good watering. In the winter, again, it depends. It can be about every 10 to 14 days, but if you have them in your home, there's supplemental lighting, it's really hot in your home and they're drying out really fast, it might still be the same rate that you were watering them during the summer. So it might still be a little over a week. And you notice like, okay, yep, I'm gonna water this guy. So So be aware of that. It really changes the factors. Everyone's home is different. Some homes are just warmer than average. Our home, for instance, we live in an apartment. At night, the heat comes on if it's below 55. The heat comes on, and it's very hot. It can get very hot. But during the day, the heat isn't on if it's not like freezing outside. The heat isn't on. So you might just have like room temperature, or if you have your windows open, it's going to get a lot colder. And some plants don't like that. Well, right now, for instance, it's 73 degrees Fahrenheit here, with 50% humidity. So the humidity is also going to drop during the winter. So make sure, again, if you have some of your holiday cacti, if you have a Christmas or Thanksgiving cacti right now that's blooming, you don't want to let the humidity drop drastically, or your house to get super hot, or put it in a place where it's going to get super hot, because it will drop all of those flowers. It will just evacuate the flowers. So it's unfortunate. But yeah, so they're very, very sensitive to that. Yeah, but they're great. I mean, they're great plants. They're very interesting. They're a plant you can share, right? You can propagate pretty readily. They're not toxic. They're actually pet friendly. And yeah, they're lovely, and they're pretty inexpensive. You can find, it might be harder to find certain colors that you might want, but overall it's something, it's a pretty affordable plant for you to get. And during the holidays, it's something really pretty to have, blooming. It kind of helps with the winter blues. It's definitely the darkness. It's like when it's like 4:30 p.m. here, it gets dark. It looks like it's 9 o'clock at night. It can and having the plants, and of course we have the grow lights, and so it helps. But yeah, it's so dark. It gets so dark so quickly. It really brings down the mood. Terry, what do you recommend for cleaning these older cacti? The leaves are covered in a light layer of dust. Yes. So for cleaning them, I would recommend a mix of rubbing alcohol and water, and you can use it as a spray. So if you were to make sure it would be during the day, probably during morning. You want it to have the day to dry out. So this isn't something you're going to want to do at night, because then it gets dark and cooler, and yeah, you don't want to do this at night. But you can do like a light spray. Usually that's enough to kind of wash them off, because some of those older plants, their segments might be really sensitive. And a Q-tip is really difficult, right? for a plant that's really large. But having an overall spray, if you're able to carry the plant into the shower, again, wait until the plant actually needs to get watered. So don't do this if the plant's already wet, because that is just going to cause root rot. But if, yeah, you can do that, like a routine shower. So not only is the plant getting watered, but it's getting completely rinsed off. And then do this during the morning time. Make sure it's not cold in your home, so that you can put it back by the window and it has the full day to kind of dry off. Make sure even maybe put a fan, something so that there's air circulation, so the plant isn't just covered in water and just kind of staying there. But that might be the easiest way, is just to rinse it off. That might be the easiest. If you can't move it, then I would just recommend using kind of like a spray bottle with some water and a little bit of rubbing alcohol in there, and giving it a good spray. But again, always make sure, if you ever do this to any of your plants, if you ever missed your plants, or give them a full spray down for any reason whatsoever. Just make sure that this is done during the day, that you have some form of air circulation, whether it's a window or a fan, that you're not doing this in the darkness. Because then the plant is just like cold, it's dark, the water's not evaporating, it's not drying. And then this can cause your plants to start to rot. So again, make sure there's a lot of light. So do this if you're going to do it. It's really best to do it in the morning because it has the whole day to dry. Make sure it's warm and make sure there's air circulation. Yeah, yes, easy, very, very easy. But yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for joining in today. It's always it's always a joy to connect with all of you. Next week we will have our Q&A. So yeah, come prepared with any questions or any ponderings that might occur over the week. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. I can't believe it. It's the 28th, so I'll see you in December. So it's wow. I can't believe it. We're about to hit December. I feel like this year went really, really quickly. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Please enjoy the rest of your week. If you're in the colder parts of and you're getting snow, please stay warm. Definitely. And it's always a joy to connect with all of you. And thank you so much. Please be safe. And I will see you all next week. Have a great one, everyone. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.